Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It's Wednesday, 9:30, a little early than normal, right? That's because we're joining News Talk 1010 with our friend Mark Toohey, who is stepping in for Jerry Agar this morning, and we'll be doing what we normally do. We do it for an hour and a half instead of an hour because we don't want to take away time from our regular viewers. So join us now for an hour and a half. Just a few minutes, we'll be joined with Mark. I made a new graphic for him. If you want to call into the show, 416-872-1010 or text 71010 to ask questions, and we'll talk about it live. But it's going to be a good show. And then when we're done on the air, we'll continue, of course, with you, and we will be talking about stuff and things. And this is a show, at least my end of the show, is entirely based on what you ask. So if you don't ask a question, we're going to talk about donuts, because that's the topic that I prefer. No, actually, I'm not that crazy about donuts, but the conversation tends to go there, and I don't know why. It might be a police thing, or the belief that that's what we should be talking about. Austin Andrew Reed, Matthew, Kayla, Big Jeff Fresh, the Nerd Dad, or that Nerd. I keep wanting to call you the Nerd Dad, but that Nerd Dad. Good morning to all of you. Thanks for the messages. And Tracy, I see you there. Allie, what's happening? Lots of folks coming in. User 801 and a whole bunch of numbers wants to know about school buses and crashing and whatnot. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Unfortunately, we will be going live in like just a minute. So
30 seconds standby.
See, 30 seconds standby. I knew it was coming. But it's good to have you here. We'll talk about all sorts of things and get to your questions. Of course, when they ask me what kind of questions TikTok's asking, that's what we'll do. We're on all pot. Hey, I added the Kick logo. I almost got it all done. I'll be silent until we go live. Maybe I shouldn't be so silent. All right. The odd silence before we kick in. Yes. I'll tell you a story in a second.
Both drivers of the two transport trucks involved that both were consumed by fire were pronounced deceased at the scene. There was a third vehicle involved that also burned. Those occupants, a driver and I believe a passenger, were able to escape their vehicle before being overcome by fire and smoke. So the situation is still very much evolving and ongoing. A lot of investigative work left to be taken care of. An absolutely tragic and horrific scene.
You're listening to Jerry Agar.
Hey, it's Mark Toohey in for Jerry Agar, and this is one of the favorite segments on the show, TikTok Traffic Cop, we call it anyway. It's Sean Shapiro, Sergeant from the Traffic Safety Program, Traffic Operations, the City of Toronto Police Service. Sarge, welcome.
Not Sarge, just PC, but I like the
PC.
promotion.
Well,
it's a good plan.
It was Sergeant Kerry Schmidt and the audio coming back in. That's what threw me off. You should be a sergeant. I mean, you and I, right?
I'm good with that if you'd like to get me a field promotion.
I think I can do a brevet promotion.
Okay.
There you go. At least for the duration of the show.
Fantastic.
That was Kerry Schmidt, OPP, sort of traffic safety public relations guy, talking about the horrific accident on the 401 last night. Left two people dead. Lots of investigations still undergoing. But there were two people in a personally owned vehicle, I assume a car or a truck, that took off. Witnesses say they got out of the cars. They saw them leave the scene, so they're not deceased. They're not waiting. Their remains are not yet to be discovered. They fled. And, I'm thinking, why would you flee something like that? Maybe you were intoxicated. Maybe you were doing something you shouldn't have been done. Maybe there's something in your car that shouldn't be there. But I can't imagine that ever makes things better for you.
No, there are those other reasons, the fear, the shock, the wanting to get away from what will be coming next, motivates people differently. I mean, someone who doesn't want to go to jail for other reasons might be running away. But yes, there are additional charges for leaving the scene of a collision if you're actually involved as a driver. If you're the passenger of a vehicle that's being involved, less so. The responsibility isn't the same. In any case, if there's people who have been involved in a collision, they may need medical attention. They may need other things going on, and this is just a bad choice or a bad decision being made.
Yeah, when you started talking there, I was thinking, well, I would definitely want to get out of my car and run away from two burning tanker trucks for sure. But I probably wouldn't keep running forever. I would stop at a safe distance and wait and see if I get help or at least answer questions, right?
There is certainly that. And if those people are listening, they should definitely contact police to be able to provide information, because they may have the key to the investigation that we're looking for, or they're looking for, because it's the OPP doing it.
So this is a segment where we are being simulcast on TikTok. That's Sergeant Constable Sean Shapiro, Traffic Safety Programs, Toronto Police Service, does this regularly. We get to join him for a half an hour every once in a while. You can weigh in or provide a question for him to answer at 416-872-1010. You can call toll-free long distance, 1-877-518-5151, or you can text them to us at 71010. We've got a call on the line. It's Walter in Mississauga. Walter, what's your question?
Yeah, it has to do, first of all, thanks for taking my call. My problem is with the tint on a lot of car windows. I understand that there's a factory-applied tint, but I also understand that the tint can't be so intense that you can't see into the car, especially for a cop stopping a car. But we see them regularly, and especially, they fly up the HOV lanes because nobody can see inside how many people there are. What's the ruling on the tinting?
Well, there's a couple of different things. The Highway Traffic Act and the inspection requirements to get safety say that you can't have more than 30% light blockage, so 70% of light has to get through. In terms of simply being able to see in, you cannot prevent or obscure the interior of a motor vehicle with color or reflective tinting that would prevent us from seeing in. So yeah, that's exactly right. It's not legal, and if we can't see in, we'll stop you and charge you. The fine is $110, and there's other charges that can go with it. Like if it's obscuring your ability to see out safely, not only could it be an unsafe vehicle where we could seize your plates and force you to get a certification if it was really dark, but if you're not able to see safely, well, that's another charge for obscuring driver's view.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks, Walter. Appreciate the call. And there's a difference. You might have just mentioned it, and I might have missed it, Sean, but there's a difference between the tint on the sort of the windshield. I don't think it can be tinted at all, except for the top part across the top for the sun. But the driver and the front passenger, is there a difference in what they can be tinted compared to the rest of the vehicle?
So the rear windows, the ones in the back seat, the cargo area, the rear window can be absolutely opaque. You can paint them solid black. The ones that are directly left and right of the driver are the ones that are limited to 30%. And when you get to your windshield, that's a zero tint area, unless your vehicle is manufactured before 2017, and that's the only time. So if you have 2016 or older, you can have that 3-inch tint strip, which I call the brow, across the top. But newer vehicles can't do that. It interferes with sensors, and they've just made a blanket ruling that you can't have any tint on the front windshield. That makes it an unsafe vehicle, and like I said, that could end up with your vehicle being taken out of service.
And who's responsible? I mean, the driver ultimately is obviously responsible when he gets pulled over and ticketed, but does anything ever come back to the shop that put an illegal tint on a window?
A lot of shops make you sign a waiver because they think that's going to save them from it. Right now, it's the driver who's ultimately responsible because whether you buy it that way or you install it, you're driving it on the road in that state. But we're looking at ways to charge the shops because they are putting people at risk by making it available. And the argument's, well, it's a show car. It's not. Well, it's driving away and it drove there. And
how did it get there?
Exactly. So it's not a very good argument. But we're always looking at ways to try and stop this kind of behavior, and maybe going after the shops is the best way.
If you've got a question for Sean Shapiro, man, you're going to be a sergeant by the end of the show.
I hope so.
Give us a call, 416-872-1010, 1-877-518-5151. You can text them in at 71010, but I love to put you on the air and hearing you ask the question directly, so please do that. Sean, we've got a question on 71010. Do you have to pull over if an emergency vehicle is traveling in the lane to the left of you? I think it's oncoming, but it could be passing you, I guess.
So the deal is that if you're in an undivided highway, that's basically a road that has a painted line dividing both directions of travel, then it's all vehicles have to pull over to the nearest curb or edge of roadway. And it doesn't matter what direction the emergency vehicle is coming, everyone's going to pull over. And that's kind of important. Now, when it comes to divided highways, going on the 401, the DVP, or anything that has a fixed barrier or a patch of grass, something that's dividing the lanes, well, that requires you to pull over if you're on the same side of the road. It does not affect oncoming traffic.
One thing that I've always told my sons, because they've had questions and they're at the driving age now. I've never been a cop or a paramedic or a firefighter, but I've driven in vehicles with emergency lights. And if for no other reason than when you pull over and stop moving, that's one less variable in the math that the emergency driver has to deal with. He knows that you're kind of out of play. Got to keep an eye on you. But when cars are moving, you never really know what those drivers are going to do.
That's it. And if I can take the opportunity to please ask everyone not to jump directly back in behind an emergency vehicle and try and make it through traffic. That is a maneuver that not only drives us crazy, but creates a tremendous risk. There are people who want to, they duck out, but then duck right back in and ride our tails. If I see someone doing that to another vehicle, I'm going to pull you over and charge you.
We're talking with Sean Shapiro from Toronto Police Traffic Services. We've got some calls coming in. Keep them coming at 416-872-1010, 1-877-518-5151. But we've only got about 90 seconds before the break, Sean. So let me hit you with another text question. What if I'm on a highway driving 100 kilometers per hour, but the traffic around me is going 120? What speed should I drive? The other traffic gets very angry and right up on my bumper if I go the speed limit.
I'll tell you, I make people angry every single day when I drive to work because I do the speed limit. I stay to the right, and I let the people who choose to speed pass me on the left. And that's where you want to be. You want to be on the right if you're not traveling with the flow of traffic. But the flow of traffic is not a rule that allows you to exceed the speed limit. You're still eligible for a ticket for any speed over the posted limit. And there are many people who will argue that if you're doing less than the flow, you are the cause of problems and you are causing danger. The truth is everyone should be doing the speed limit, and there's no justified reason to exceed it.
That is Sean Shapiro, the TikTok traffic cop. You might be watching us on TikTok. You might be listening to us on the iHeartRadio Talk Network, but you can ask your questions at 416-872-1010, 1-877-518-5151. Love to get your questions. Some of them I have heard before. People keep wanting to know. Others, well, they're new to me. I kind of go, wow, that's an interesting question. I really like that. My name is Mark Huey, and for Jerry Agar, we'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to News Talk 1010 and the iHeartRadio Talk Network. It is 9:45.
Cool. So we're going to have a few minutes while they're on commercial break. They'll come back. We'll keep doing that.
News Talk 1010, time saver traffic.
And I'm going to mute them, or are we going to be muted? I think we'll be okay. But the deal is that we're going to continue. If you would like to call into the radio, 416-872-1010, or text 71010, at which point you will have an opportunity to talk to Control at News Talk 1010 and possibly get on the air in Toronto. And we will be taking questions because very often we're asked, what's TikTok asking? Now, Mark mentioned that we're on TikTok, but we're also simulcasting on YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and now Kick. I got to put the logo up after we're off because we also have the Twitter logo needs to be represented. But we're everywhere. Of course, if you're on Twitter, it's a one-way valve. We can't see your comments as much as we'd like to. So if you go to trafficcop.ca, you'll be brought to my link tree, at which point you can choose any one of the platforms that we're on to join us and watch live and interact with us. And that's really when the show takes off, where it's special because it's a show for you. We're here entirely to provide you with information, answers to your questions about traffic safety, traffic law, and police stuff, and occasionally donuts. Ryan Pinn, good morning to you. Akila Draconis, of course, good morning to you. But he's got to step out for an appointment, audio only, so he won't be interacting. We have so many listeners, and you're more than a listener. You interact. You're part of the show, part of the Ask a Traffic Cop family. Thank you for all that you do and coming out and spending out time with us and supporting us, because so many of you are here every single day. And like Mark said, there's many questions that come out on a regular basis, and they're the same. You know them as much as I do, and it is interesting that you put up with it, because I understand why the new folks. And by the way, if you're new to the show, if you've never said hello, if you've never reached out, please comment. Say new in the comments so I can shout out to you and acknowledge that you're here. And yeah, we'd love to know where you're tuning in from. I know what platform you're on, but I don't know where you are in the world. And we have listeners from around the world. Of course, I know that because recently I had a post that was offending people in Paris because it talked about lane splitting and how it's illegal. And people in Paris were up in arms because it's legal there, according to them, as well as I think the majority of the angry people were from the United States who said lane splitting is legal in California. That's great. It's not legal here in Ontario, and I don't believe it's legal anywhere in Canada. But we'll talk about that. But if you're from anywhere, let me know where that anywhere is. Master Technician, good morning from Jane and Finch. Good morning from Liberty Village. That's where we are. Downtown Toronto. Hey, you're going to the Honda Indy? I'll be at the Honda Indy. We're going to have a booth there. I'll be there all weekend. And if you want to come down and say hello to us, you should totally do that. Now, the first day is free. It's a donation to Make-A-Wish. That's what gets you entrance, and it's a perfect opportunity to support a good cause and come down and see some cool stuff and meet up with the traffic safety people. If you're on Instagram, hello, separate phone. Don't get to put you on screen, but I'm certainly going to try and pay attention to all your questions. What's going on here? We got questions about turning right on a red light. Okay, we'll talk about that. Yeah, okay. Well, that's a great question. I think we'll talk about that on the air if we're given the opportunity. We'll flag that question. Let me flag it from here. We're live, yeah. We're on with News Talk. Okay, we've got, what's going on here? This is where all the cool traffic nerds hang. I think you meant nerds, but you're absolutely right. Okay, hey, News Talk. What is the question here? Okay. So we'll be a little bit of a longer hold because there's stuff happening. Now I want to know what's happening. Okay, there's some breaking news. I want to know what the breaking news is. News Talk 1010 has breaking news, so I'm excited, but I don't know what. Well, maybe I can hear it. Maybe you throw the breaking news live so everyone on our end will hear it too, because it's likely important. I think it's important. Breaking news sounds cool. We should have a breaking traffic news. Okay. Okay, this is definitely a great question. Chase is booking tickets to come to the Honda India. It was actually Chase who kept asking about it that reminded me I had to book the show. So Chase, you're in part one of the reasons as to why we part of the reason that we are actually at there, because you reminded me during a show that said I need to go book that. So thank you for making it possible for us to be at Honda India. I'm sure it would have happened eventually, but you got me ahead of the curve. See, we have the best viewers, with the best audience, the best traffic extended family possible. Okay. I hear you almost coming back with it.
On the go, take News Talk 1010 Toronto with you. Download, listen, and learn through the iHeartRadio app. Now back to Jerry Agar.
Hey, it's Mark Toohey in for Jerry Agar. We're talking with Sean Shapiro from Toronto Police Services Traffic Safety Programs. He is the TikTok traffic cop. We're taking your calls at 416-872-1010, 1-877-518-5151. If you are on hold, hang on. They're very busy behind the glass. Right now, it is 8:21.
From the CTV Toronto newsroom, this is breaking news.
I'm Ashley Legasic in the CTV Toronto newsroom.
Can confirm that the two missing Canadian Armed Forces members were found deceased by searchers yesterday.
As you just heard from National Defence Minister Anita Anand, the bodies of two missing Royal Canadian Air Force crew members have been found after a helicopter crash in Eastern Ontario. This is a story we first brought you yesterday. The Chinook chopper crashed into the Ottawa River early yesterday morning, and two crew members were found injured, but two others were missing. That is when a search and rescue operation was launched to locate the other two. The Department of National Defence now confirming their bodies were located last night. As you just heard at the beginning of breaking news, officials are speaking at this moment. We're going to bring you all of their comments at the top of the hour and throughout the Jerry Agar Show. Again, just recapping our breaking news. The bodies of two missing Royal Canadian Air Force crew members have been found after a helicopter crash in Eastern Ontario. Stay tuned to the Jerry Agar Show for all of the latest. From the CTV Toronto newsroom, I'm Ashley Legasic.
Thank you, Ashley. Sad news. We've been following the search for the crew of that Chinook helicopter, very big twin rotor helicopter used by the Canadian Forces, crashed yesterday just after midnight in the Ottawa River. They recovered two of the crew. There were four on board. They went to hospital where they, I believe, remain in treatment now. Now they've confirmed what we suspected yesterday when they kind of changed the tenor of their response. Two, unfortunately, did not survive. They've been recovered. Sad news, but that just underscores that even in peacetime, even on training operations, it is a dangerous business in Canada's military, the Air Force, and so our hearts go out to the families and the crew and the comrades of these two crew members. But we are talking with TikTok traffic cop Sean Shapiro. We're taking calls at 416-872-1010 about traffic laws and your questions about them. What better opportunity will you ever have to ask a traffic cop when he's not standing outside your window looking at you through dark sunglasses, giving you a stern talking to at best and a ticket, or even worse at worst? Sean, let's go to Mike in Brampton. What's your question, sir?
Oh, yeah, it's Mike in Brampton.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, coming into roundabouts, 53-footers or super beats. Who has the right of way when they're trying to pass you on the sidewalk because you need room to get around them? You can't get through them with these trucks. Who has the right of way coming in?
Well, when you're in it, you've got the right of way. The interesting thing about roundabouts is they're usually designed with the knowledge that long trucks are going to probably have to mount the center pad that's usually left available for you, so you can almost go straight through. But they're a mess for long vehicles. I have mixed emotions in general about these roundabouts. They're supposed to be safer, but they are confusing to everyone who knows nothing about them, and that's a lot of people. So you just gotta use extreme caution. You technically have the right of way inside the roundabout. You have to yield to whoever's inside.
Which is a common sense approach to how you would do that. I drove in Syria for a while where the rule was the opposite, where the person entering the traffic roundabout had the right of way. And that does not work well for traffic management.
That must be people from there who are driving in the neighborhoods that I'm frequenting, because it is literally a game of chicken every time I'm in a roundabout.
Let's go to Newmarket and talk to Tom. What's your question for the TikTok traffic cop?
I'm just curious, under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, when my son goes to Boots and Hearts, their rules are posted. Basically, people get searched. Well, I'll tell you right now, he is 20-year-old male. He will get searched. When I went, not a problem. And all the RVs, no one else gets searched. It's just these young males get searched by security guards, not even police. Is that within the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms to have people say, get out of your car, I'm searching it, and confiscate anything they feel is contraband?
So I'm assuming you're talking about private property and an event that you're buying tickets to, and it's a condition of entry. You can refuse and then not go to the event, but they're saying it's a condition of entry. And I don't think there's anything that gets into charter situation, because you're simply saying it's a condition of your entrance. But that's something that's a little outside of the scope of traffic. That's starting to talk about whether or not a private company can say you're not coming in unless I search you, and you have the choice to submit or not.
Thanks, Tom.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, a bit outside of the traffic scope, but let's go to Frank in Durham. Go ahead, sir.
Hi there. Wanted to find out, I drive 70-foot tractor trailers, and sometimes I have to pull over to the side for a couple minutes out of, on the road. And a lot of the roads say no stopping, no parking, no whatever. Is there permission that allows me to do it for short periods because I'm so long and I can't go on the side roads or anything like that?
If you're stopping because there's a safety concern or there's something you've got to check, it's a reasonable. You're not parking. You're not getting out of your vehicle and leaving it. I'm assuming you're just doing something that's reasonable. And even if an officer were to pull over and check on you to say what's up, I think you'd have a plausible or acceptable excuse. The issue is it's not intended or it's very strictly enforced in the areas where someone is just stopping to stop. So again, it's for a legitimate reason. You got to do what you got to do.
A lot of questions about large commercial vehicles, including this one with an opposite perspective. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, you did.
Go ahead. What's your question?
You have truck drivers driving at 80 in the center lane on the 401 all the time. Isn't that like obstructing traffic, or should we like ticket for that or something? Or
Well, it's not illegal to drive below the speed limit, at least not in a reasonable way. The speed limit is the limit, not the minimum. So when someone's doing 80 in the center lane, you've got a passing lane for that reason. Use it. Pass on the left. This morning I was passed by a vehicle, an Audi, a two-door Audi. If that was you, because everyone in the office was talking about them, they passed on the right. With two tires onto the shoulder to get past me while I was doing the limit, and they were probably doing 1.5 times or more the speed limit. So the idea is pass safely and don't speed. But if you're doing 100 and they're doing 80, you pass them. That's what passing lanes are for.
One question from 71010 is interesting. Can you tell, when I see a car with a green flashing light It's got something to do with volunteer firefighters. What does that mean for me as a driver?
So that's actually a great question, and we don't hear about it a lot in Toronto. But yes, a green flashing dash light or light on the front of a vehicle is to identify a volunteer firefighter, and it is a courtesy light. In order to use one, you have to be a volunteer firefighter, and you can get in trouble, obviously, if you're misusing it. But there's no obligation under the Highway Traffic Act. If you choose to ignore it, know that you are causing someone's house to burn or someone to be, in medical distress, and you're not helping the situation. What you should be doing is yielding, pulling over, and allowing them to pass. But it's not something that is enforceable. It is a courtesy, and they don't get to speed. They don't get to go through red lights because of those. It's a very specific thing. Get out of the way so they can go help and save the day.
Do we have flashing purple lights in Ontario? I remember that somewhere as being like a funeral car.
It's not a regulated color, but it is the color that most funeral processions use. They don't get any special privileges for it, but it does help identify the fact that that is leading a funeral procession, and you expect to be waiting for a while. Many people ask, can a funeral procession go through red lights? And the only time that they can go through a red light is when it's being controlled by a police officer.
Thank you, Sean Shapiro. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with more TikTok Traffic Cop, if not sooner.
Absolutely. Take care. We ran out of time, but I got tons of messages and tons of questions. Thank you to News Talk. It's always fun when we get to hang out with them. Thank you to News Talk 1010 to allow us to come in and play. Or maybe they're thanking us for coming in. I don't know. Whatever works. We have fun doing it, so it's a good time all around. Let's see here. Let's start with things that we haven't talked about, and then we'll get back into our regular routine. First off, we are the Toronto Police Service. That's where I work. My name is Sean Shapiro. I work for the Toronto Police Service. I work in an office called the Traffic Safety Programs Unit, which is a subunit of Traffic Services, which is a citywide unit for the Toronto Police Service. We respond to calls for service, which include generally collisions, but we also enforce the Highway Traffic Act. And that's important. That's a lot of what we do, because there's a lot of people who choose to violate the rules. And people, they need reminders that that's not allowed. And what do we do with it? We issue tickets. Sometimes we take licenses away. And there's a lot that goes in there. But one thing that we know for sure is that not everybody understands the law. You pass the tests to get your driver's license when you're 16 or whenever you get it. And then very quickly, information leaves. It was temporarily stored. So our goal here is to answer your questions, help you understand what is safe and legal, so that you don't get pulled over, you don't get charged, and you don't run into problems. Now, we are currently broadcasting on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Kick, and Twitter. But if you're on Twitter, we can't see your questions. So if you'd like to ask us questions, and we do hope you do have questions and want to ask, go to trafficcop.ca, jump over to one of our other platforms where we can see you, and then you can see us, and it'll be all that. So let's get into a couple of things. First off, Vision Zero Enforcement Team. Who are they? What does this mean? And what are they doing today? Where are they? Well, Vision Zero is an enforcement group. They are a unit within our traffic services that focuses on the Big Four. Great, Sean. What's the Big Four? Glad you asked. It's speeding, aggressive driving, distracted driving, and impaired driving. Those are offenses or driver behaviors that are known to lead to serious injury and death. And guess what? We don't want injury and death on our roads. We understand minor collisions are bound to happen, but the ones that lead to serious injury and death are totally unacceptable, and they're preventable. So don't do that stuff or expect a ticket. And the communities that are getting that special extra help from Vision Zero today, well, that is, or those are the divisions of 11 and 53 division. Where are they? Junction, Weston, High Park, Ronsonsvales, Lawrence Park, Yonge and Eglinton, Rosedale, Leaside. Those are neighborhoods. That's not all of the neighborhoods, but those are neighborhoods within those divisional boundaries that are getting some extra care, because real people live there and they deserve to be safe. And why do we tell you where we are? Why aren't we hiding behind trees and keeping it a secret? Well, we're still hiding behind trees, but we're not telling you which trees. Why? We want the people in those neighborhoods to know that we're there, because we're there to help. And let's get into some questions, because that's what we're all about. Is turning right on a red light on a double right lane legal? I grew up thinking it wasn't, and I was wrong when I became a police officer and started learning stuff. I learned that, in fact, you can make right turns from either lane. That's a right turn lane. As long as it's safe to do so, and as long as it's not prohibited by sign. So the one thing that people do mess up in this scenario is when you make a right turn from the curb lane, you must be in the curb lane when you complete your turn. If you're in the lane over, you must complete your turn in the appropriate lane, or you're making an improper turn, and then it's not legal. We have a question from Allie. These are TikTok questions, by the way. Can I drive in the HVO, I think you mean HOV, if it's just myself and my infant daughter in the car? HOV lanes require 2 passengers, I think, for all of the 400 series, whereas we have some multi-lane, diamond lane, multi-person, multi-use. Depends on what the sign says. So the ones inside Toronto, you might require 3 people. But let's talk about 400 series HOV lanes. If you're driving one of those, your infant daughter is considered a human. A lot of people ask if they can drive with their pet. Your daughter is not a pet. They qualify as human, and as so, you can use the lane. It doesn't have to be someone employed going to work. It's not a carpool lane so much as it's a multiple passengers, and again, your daughter qualifies. Dr. Nick has a question. I like Dr. Nick's questions. Why do you say lane splitting is illegal when it's not written into law? An officer may think it's not careless driving. So the Highway Traffic Act and many laws are not explicit. And I mean that it doesn't say everything, but it says some things. And you can extrapolate based on reading one law, even though it's not completely listed. Like, for instance, underglow. Does it say that you can't have underglow? There's nowhere in the Highway Traffic Act that has the words underglow. However, there are rules that say you cannot have light projected forward other than white or yellow. So if you have underglow and I see the bulbs and it's projecting forward, you are violating headlight laws, which makes underglow illegal by virtue of the way it's being observed and the way it was installed and so on. It is unsafe to drive between vehicles in marked lanes, marked departures in terms of speed and driving style. So if everyone's doing 100 and you're doing 150 and zipping, these are all easy to extrapolate from what is written and conclude that the action is illegal, even though it doesn't say thou shalt not lane split. I'm trying to make the what's the word? The explanation. But ultimately, that's it. So you may violate other laws, and the act that we label it as being lane splitting, we simply advertise it as lane splitting is legal, but it's because you're violating other laws. Hopefully that works for you. If you want to talk about it more, happy to do so, but I'm going to move on to it because I was starting to get circular in my argument. Okay, Ryan Pinn has a very serious question. He never asks funny stuff. Can I mount a window-mounted air conditioner if my AC runs out in my car? I promise to use ratchet straps. The sad truth is that we've seen this on the road, and it becomes another law. It's not the I shall not mount air conditioners to my car law. It's the secure attachment of a load. And I would argue that a large window-mounted air conditioner is probably unsafe, if it's especially on the side of the vehicle. But I don't think anything, if it was done in such a way that it was truly safely mounted and secured, you might be okay. Please don't do this. Please don't do this. Okay. Who's at fault if you hit someone after being brake checked? So brake checking, which is not a legalese term, but it's when someone intentionally slams on the brakes, applies their brakes in such a way that they reduce their speed rapidly, only to cause you harm. They're causing you either panic to make sure you're paying attention. It might be an FU to say, don't be so close. Whatever the reasons that motivate them to do this, they are committing an offense. They are either carelessly driving, intentionally dangerously driving, or committing a stunt. And those are serious. It's not something to communicate with. You want to give someone the bird, give them the bird. Don't brake check them. And don't follow us too close. It's another way to avoid being the victim of brake checking. But if you do hit them as a result of their brake checking, they've caused the collision, but you've got to prove it. And that's where dash cams become magical. I would strongly suggest, and I regularly do, that everyone have a dash cam installed in their motor vehicle because, yeah, you want to have evidence. And sadly, the days of people hanging out to provide statements isn't always, well, they've gone. Many people don't stick around. Where I would witness something as a kid, as a teenager, I would pull over and I would provide my information as a witness, even if I couldn't stay, because that's what I thought you did. And that's what I still do because I think that's the right thing to do. It helps the person who is the victim because without your testimony, the victim may be blamed as the cause. And this brake checking business is very often something utilized by those who want to defraud insurance companies. They want to get, the ouch my neck situation. They cause a collision. They claim, I don't know, a goose flew in front of them, and suddenly I saw a dog. There was a duck crossing this. Whatever the lame excuse is, not the lame duck. They then blame. So if you have a dash camera to suggest that this is part of other behavior, to tell the picture of the story, tell the story. It's very, very helpful. Everyone should have it, and help the people who don't have dash cameras by stopping. Okay. Kyle Thomas. Why are police allowed to turn off their mics on body cams? It depends. There are situations where privacy concerns kick in, and there are those that when you're trained for body cam, you're given the reasons that you would be able to disable them. Privacy, depending on where you are. One of the reasons is you go to the bathroom, you disable your body cam. But if you're in a situation, there's very specific reasons why. Which I'm not going to go through because I don't know them all. I am not a body cam officer. I haven't, but now that you've asked the question, I have to go read it because I want to know. If I don't have an answer, I like to find out. I know the gist of it, but I don't know the details because I've not been trained. That's because I'm not on the road and I haven't been on the road since my collision, and that's when the body cams were introduced. And it's not a good excuse, but it is the excuse I'm using. Can you drive a G-Class commercial vehicle with a G1 license with a G driver in the vehicle? You can drive any vehicle that is G-Class. As long as you're being supervised by a G-Class driver who is qualified to supervise. That means they have 4 years experience. That clock on their experience starts when they get their G2. And if they have a total of 4 years, they're qualified. And how do they know they're qualified? They look at their driver's license and they see 4 vertically arranged dots to the left of their mini-me photo in the bottom right-hand corner of their driver's license. That's where it is. If you don't have those dots, do not supervise because you cannot confirm that you are qualified. You may believe that you have 4 years, but you may not meet the qualifications, at which point that driver that you're supervising is unlicensed for the purposes of driving. They are driving G1 unaccompanied, which means they're eligible for a $110 ticket, a 30-day suspension if it's their first conviction. A second one would be 90 days. If it's a third one, they'd get kicked out of the driver's program or the graduate licensing program. So it's serious. They're also not insured. So there are serious consequences. But yeah, you can drive anything that a G-Class, that requires a G-Class license. Chase says, my water bottle is cool. My voiceover cop water bottle. Yeah, I got a coupon. Do a survey, get a $50 certificate from a particular online place that makes stuff. So I did the survey and I made myself my one-of-one voiceover cop water bottle. This is not merch that's available. It's just merch so I know it's my water bottle. Okay. Chewbacca is it Chewbacca? Chewbacca is that the proper spelling for Chewbacca? I've never written Chewbacca. I've probably read Chewbacca before. What's your thoughts on speeding if, let's say, your wife is in labor and you're trying to reach the ER? Well, no one's going to like my answer. I can tell you that I have 2 children. My wife made them, and we planned our trip. Now, there are always emergency situations that you can't plan for, like our delivery. Although, she was really on top of knowing what was going on, felt things, made plans, said, hey, you're not going on a course today. I'm like, of course I'm going on a course. I was supposed to take a particular investigator's course. She said, you're not going. I said, but I'm booked on the course. I got to go. She says, we're having a baby today. So I didn't go on the course. And we then made arrangements, speaking to appropriate people, to get advice as to when we should leave. And she knew ahead of time. And we made a trip well in advance of it becoming an emergency. Had it become an emergency, and we've had emergency before, that's 911. That's call the police, fire, ambulance number. That's what 911 is. And they send paramedics in an ambulance. They do the driving. They stabilize your patient and administer medication if need be, and then they transport them to the hospital. If you drive there speeding and you are involved in a collision, no one's getting help, at least not in the appropriate amount of time. You've created more victims, more injured parties. You've now used up emergency resources inappropriately because you caused it. So my opinion is you don't speed. You don't speed ever. You don't speed. If you need emergency services, you call emergency services. But putting lives at risk is just totally unacceptable. And that's my opinion. And it's the one that coincides with the law oddly enough. People often say, well, I live outside of, an area that has reasonable response times for paramedics. So it's an hour for an ambulance to attend. If the drive is an hour and you can get there safely, don't speed. If the drive is, if it's something where you would have to speed, or you would be in a situation where you would be speeding, and transporting that person puts them at risk just because you're transporting, because they're not stable necessarily. If someone's bleeding, you're better off to employ first aid and then someone who can stabilize them. There's a whole bunch of things, but take direction from the dispatcher. They're going to tell you, drive safely and lawfully to this intersection, and an ambulance will meet you there. I've heard of that happening. So I'm not going to tell you don't transport, because I'm not a medical professional and I can't give you that advice. But whatever you do, make sure you have clearance to do it, and none of that will include speeding. I can tell you, because no one's going to tell you to speed. Is there anything a civilian can do about people driving on their phones, especially during heavy traffic rush hour? I see it all the time. You can, if you're in the city of Toronto, make reports online. You can do it with York Regional Police as well. You can record what you saw. You can give us dash cam footage. You can do all sorts of stuff on an online form. Now, you can't actually upload the video, but you can upload it to YouTube and send us a link, or a Dropbox or whatnot. Can we lay a charge? Not necessarily. We need to see certain information before we can do it. We have to be able to identify the driver, the vehicle, the location, the time, and so on. So what can we do? What does doing that report do if we can't lay charges? Well, at the very least, we can create a file. What does that file mean? It means I pull over that vehicle for the same thing, and they're hoping to get a warning. Well, phone, I probably wouldn't give a warning anyway, but just saying, any offense, then I would look up and say, there's a warning here, or there's a file that was created by a civilian who observed this particular vehicle doing this particular thing. I'm not giving them a warning. They got a warning. They did something. It's not a one-off. It's the first time they got caught, but it's not a one-off. It's a pattern of behavior. So it is worthy of your report if you are interested in doing that. It is not a 911 call. Just saying. Do not misuse. And I just take a moment to talk about 911. People call 911 for the darndest things. Please don't abuse 911. There are people with real emergencies who need to get through to a dispatcher, to a call taker, to get police, fire, or ambulance to respond to their needs, their emergency, their actual emergency. And when you misuse it, it's a problem. You know what else is a problem? When you butt dial or call 911 and then you hang up because you realized you made a mistake, or you got tired of waiting on hold. That requires someone to call you back and verify that you're okay. If you call 911 on purpose or by accident, please stay on the line. Let them know that they don't need to hang up and call you back. It takes longer for you, unfortunately, but it does not tie up resources the same way. They will have to call, and you will have to answer, and they will continue to call, and it really does cause a problem. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Metric. Okay, I'm not going to try and say what the username is, but we'll call you Metric. Would you happen to know what is in? Oh, do I happen to know what the what happened on the what happened? Would you happen to know what is involved with the accident investigation with the 401 today? So we talked about it earlier when we were on with Mark Toohey, who's standing in for Jerry Agar on News Talk 1010 this morning. I don't know what they're doing. I know they're going to be doing reconstruction in terms of investigation to determine what happened. It's going to be there for a long time, but ultimately a vehicle carrying a flammable substance was involved in a collision and exploded. I've seen some video online. It's quite shocking video, actually. None of this looks like fun. So, sad news. Two people are confirmed dead, I believe, and that news, and then is sad enough. And then we heard about two soldiers who were found in the Ottawa River after a Chinook. Chinook? Is it a Chinook? I don't want to mispronounce this helicopter, because helicopter people will be upset. Even though I mispronounce anyway. Porsche, I've often mispronounced. So Chinook, a helicopter. They were located and have died. So a lot of people have died in sad situations in the last 24, 48. Mind you, people die all the time. It's sad. Okay. Hello, sir. I have 4 dots on my AZ license. Can I give driving lessons to my wife? The answer is, if you have the 4 dots, you are qualified under a G class. It actually just says that you have 4 years experience and are capable of being a coach to a G1. That's all it means. And speaking of AZ, and thank you for reminding me, I received some internal mail. Somebody who did not sign their name said that I gave some bad information or incorrect information. When Sergeant Campbell and I were on last week, the question came up saying, can you learn to drive from an AZ driver if you have your G-Class license in a big rig on a vehicle that requires a license other than G? And we said, yes, but you'd likely have to get the air brake endorsement, which is what the Z is. We were incorrect. And I thank the anonymous person who sent me internal mail because they sent me actually a printout from there. And it says that as long as the instructor or the supervising driver has their Z endorsement, then the driver who is learning can just have their G, which I think is really cool. So thank you, 565789769, for the question that not only was your question, but that allowed me to say what I had to say about being wrong last week. Because occasionally we're wrong, and when we're wrong, and we admit it, and that's just all it is. We go with the we do the best we can do with the information we have, and of course, anything we share we believe is correct. And if we find out later that we were not, or something changed, we're always in the mode of correcting ourselves. Okay. If a school bus crashes into a car from the back when the car is turning, whose fault is it? So you're in the process of turning and the bus drives into the back of your vehicle. If you signaled, then it was all done in safety. Generally speaking, the person or the vehicle behind is going to be responsible. If the turning action caused the collision, you may have either joint fault. If you're turning into the path of somebody else, you turn in. Turning vehicles are generally at fault, but when you talk about running into somebody, that's a problem. Now, they're going to be responsible. At very least, they're going to be partially responsible. I can't think of a reason why it would be your fault at all. If you're doing it in a place where you're expected to be making turns, if you signaled, if you slowed down, like all of everything depends. But ultimately, you cannot drive into people. It's your responsibility to maintain a safe distance and to pay attention to what's going on in front of you. You know, there's a bunch of charges that they could get charged with. Hey, have you ever thought about becoming a member of the Toronto Police Service? I certainly did. That's how I ended up here. I know it sounds obvious, but we are hiring, and for a number of different positions. Let me pull that up and show you, because I have it right here. We have all sorts of opportunities. This is Aaron. You may know Aaron as TPS_Bikehart. We have a whole bunch of different positions, different opportunities. We're always looking for police officers, or at least at the moment. We do occasionally get freezes. Freezes? Get frozen? We get cold in here. Actually, it was really warm yesterday, so I'm appreciative of the fact that it's warm. It's cool today. Anyway, we have jobs that are currently posted. Senior writer, issues and media advisor, lead social media, auxiliary volunteer. That's how I started with the service. I was a volunteer auxiliary member. Greatest way to give back to your community. And what a fun time. I have friends to this day that were auxiliaries with me. It was just a wonderful experience. I totally endorse it. You don't have to want to be a police officer to be a volunteer with the auxiliary program. I know people with 30 plus years who just volunteer, and it's great. Developer, digital team, benefits administrator, intermediate analyst, senior analyst, solutions architect, and communication operator. These are the current jobs posted, but here's the deal. That will change. The postings are up for as long as they're up. We'll look at this one, for instance. The closing date for this is June 21st. Hey, that's today. So if you want this job, you better hurry up and apply, because it's going to be closed by end of day. And this is a great place to work. It is a career with many different jobs, because you could start in IT risk management doing this intermediate analyst, and you might become a police officer later if you desire, if you want to make that kind of change. So there are opportunities, and it's all up to you. Let's go. That's, by the way, tps.ca/careers to get to that page. I neglected to share that information. Chase, I noticed you earlier when you said not good breaking news, sorry to the families. Yes, absolutely. What tragic news. Okay. This one is an interesting question. What happens if you get caught with a firearm during a traffic stop? it really depends on if that firearm is being transported by a legal owner who is lawfully in possession and following all the regulations. If you are a criminal with a gun, expect to be arrested and charged and all that good stuff. Yeah, and that happens a lot. Oddly enough, bad people drive cars, and that's why traffic officers get so many guns off the road, because we're constantly stopping people and talking to people, and oddly enough, we find a lot of criminals. Stephen Bell says, hi, good morning. Hi, good morning to you. Darius Hill has a question. Toronto Police Traffic Unit, is there no chase law after a certain speed? It is not a number in sand that is written that cannot be crossed. The deal is this. Every chase interaction, every situation where someone fails to stop or refuses to pull over as directed is going to be evaluated, and public safety is going to be the critical factor. We're going to do things to avoid having innocents injured or killed. So it depends on whether or not we're going to chase you. If it's something like you didn't signal and you decide to run, will I chase someone for that? No, maybe I'm just going to assume that you didn't notice that I had flashing lights on you, behind you for 5 minutes. It really depends. The truth is, I'm going to be able to identify you very quickly by your license plate and or trying to identify you before I even turn on my lights to determine I'm going to pull you over. I know more about you than you think I do, and I'm just going to meet you at your house and I'm going to charge you later. So I don't chase if I don't have to chase. No one would want to put themselves at risk. It is an incredibly dangerous situation, so we avoid it. But that doesn't mean we can't do it. Good morning, Sean. That's from Tim. We have a question from my good friend, Nerd Dad. That Nerd Dad. If you haven't seen, I've done a number of episodes with him on his podcast. They're awesome. I enjoy them. He says he has fun talking to me, but I have fun talking to him. And if you're still there, you owe me $5 for saying that. Do red light speed cameras need to have signage warning the drivers? They do in Toronto. I imagine they do anywhere in the province. I don't know why we need to warn people that they should be following the law or they'll be held accountable, because those speed signs, I think, are enough of a warning. In fact, even if there are no speed signs, I think that the fact that there are rules that are in place, even if signs aren't there, should be enough. But I don't make the rules. So they need to be signed. And if they're not, maybe you've got an out. But that's up for the courts. Here's a question we can talk about while I take a sip of water. I guess we're not talking about while I was sipping the water, but we can talk about it now that I've stopped sipping the water. Christine wants to know, what is the legal age or requirements for a child to ride in the front seat? The answer is there are none. You can sit in the front seat at any age. We do, however, suggest back seats of 14 because those magical things called airbags that are so magical that reduce injuries could be fatal to small children or people, especially those that are smaller. Even adults who are small could be in a situation to be injured, but definitely children, it's less desirable to be in the front seat. They still need to be meeting all the requirements for child seat or booster seat and whatnot, but if you can be in the back seat, that is the best place. And you don't always, not all vehicles have back seats. So what do you do? Could you put a baby carrier or a rear-facing child restraint in the front seat? Sure you can. Is it ideal? No. If you are taking a child in the front seat that is under 14, I would say put the seat as far away from the airbags as possible. And wow, the visual just popped in. I don't know why people do this, but feet on dashboard. If you want to get severely injured in a crash, severely possibly never walk again, feet on dashboard will help you do that. Don't put your feet on dashboard. I see children, I see adults doing it. In the event of a collision, that is going to be catastrophic. You're probably going to drive your femurs into the back of the chair, never walk again. Just bad. Don't do that. Are the blue license plates still legal? And that's the Grinch coming in from Kick. I think you're one of our few Kick users. I'm questioning how many people actually use Kick, but you are one of them, and I appreciate it. So the answer is they are still legal. You cannot get new ones, but they are legal. They have not decided or announced a recall of them, and I really think they should, because they're terrible plates. I like the way they look, but they are functionally horrible. Yes, so if they ever let me make rules, that would be the first one I make. Can you put stickers on your license plate? No, you may not. You cannot alter your license plate in any way. In fact, it's an arrestable offense to modify your license plate or change its appearance. So whether you are covering it to change the color, covering it to obscure and avoid detection, or just putting, Pokemon stickers on it because you just like Pokemon, it's not legal, and you can be arrested for it. Yeah. In fact, there are people who have faded plates that say, I'm just going to paint this and make it more visible. Technically illegal. Mm-hmm. Okay. Chris Donnelly wants to know, at intersection with stop line, stop with bumper or tire on stop line. It's going to be up to the officer to ultimately make that determination, but let's go to the rules. Stop wrong place. Let me look that up. So, disobey stop sign, stop wrong place. Here's what it says verbatim. Shall stop his or her vehicle or streetcar, it's important to include streetcars, at a marked stop line, or if none, then immediately before entering the nearest crosswalk, or if none, then immediately before entering the intersection. It doesn't say anything about tires or bumper. It says stop before. I would say the whole of your vehicle should be before. If you stop with your tires on the line and your bumper protrudes into the crosswalk and it caused you to hit somebody, that's obviously a problem. I would say the entire thing. I was hoping it would say something a little more detailed, but it didn't. So I'm going to tell you that the whole vehicle should be before. In fact, based on the fact that you're looking over a hood, you should be able to see it, ideally, or approximate it. Usually the stop sign is in line with it, but every intersection is a little bit different. Michelle wants to know, why can we not use the bus lane on the DVP? It creates so much more space. Because it's a bus lane. It's intended for buses, and it's not a continuous lane that goes all the way through. It comes and goes, and it's a very lightly used bus lane. It's really using a shoulder. You cannot use it, and it would, other than it's not an actual proper lane, it's just to be able to get large buses through, and it's very specifically go buses that it's meant for. I cannot imagine what would happen if it would just become a parking lot. It would just be an inclusive part of the purpose of moving large vehicles through there is to get them faster, get them through the traffic faster. If you just have another lane, it's just going to be another lane of nobody moving anywhere, and then it will not function. But I appreciate the desire to get to work sooner. Ryan Pinn, WRT. I don't know what that acronym is. Brake checking. If someone is following closely, you should increase your following distance to the vehicle ahead of you. So if they stop quickly, you don't have to. Yes, don't follow too close. With regard to WRT, I think I got it. Yeah, you should not be following too close. They're being bad. I have so many ways I want to describe them. But yeah, they're doing the wrong thing in terms of brake checking, but you should be nowhere near the back of their vehicle so that if they choose to do it, you'd have just loads of space to respond. Hey, if you're new to the channel, you don't already subscribe, follow, or like our stuff. If you don't like it, why? Anyway, follow us, like us, share us, retweet us, whatever platform you're on. We would really appreciate you sharing our live stream. Now, we are on a whole bunch of different places. We're currently broadcasting on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and now Kick, as well as Twitter. The Twitter, however, you can't ask us questions, so if you want to ask us questions, please join us on go to trafficcop.ca and join us on one of the other platforms, because then you can actually ask us questions and we answer them. And that's what we want to do. We were here. This is a show for you. If you didn't know who I was, it says so on the screen. My name is Sean Shapiro. I'm a police officer with the Toronto Police Service, and I talk about stuff and things normally related to the Toronto Police. Well, actually, traffic safety, traffic law, and police stuff, and very often recruiting and all sorts of stuff. If you'd like to see what happens when you go to trafficcop.ca, it goes to my link tree where I have all sorts of great information, if I do say so myself. You can support Special Olympics Ontario, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment, but you can find all of our socials so you can ask us questions. You can even subscribe to our podcast, which is different than the content here, although I am talking about putting all of these available for podcast download, because someone said that would be a good idea, and I will support that. If you're talking about hiring, look at that, tps.ca/careers. You can click there. You can get to me You can connect with me on Linktree and all of my socials here. You can look at some of my old previous interviews and appearances on different stuff. I have to expand on. There's tons of them. Useful links. This is the one that I really want to bring your attention to. Making police reports. You can do. This is a link to the core pages. If you'd like to, if you're involved in a collision as a pedestrian or cyclist, you can start your report there and just finish it by verifying your identity when you get to a collision reporting center. Renewing your license plate. It's free for most vehicles under 3,000 pounds, but you can go and do that by going to this link. Driver's license check. Why would anyone want to do a driver's license check? Why would it be important? If you're going to loan your motor vehicle to someone and they have a license that they show you, how do you know it's valid? You don't. So you go to this website and you can validate the status. You won't know if they have the appropriate license class that I'm aware of. You can just find out if their license is valid, because some people get suspended. And if they get suspended, they're not licensed. And if you loan them your vehicle, you're responsible for allowing an unlicensed driver to drive your vehicle. It is amazing. You don't want to be that person. You don't want to get stuck letting somebody use your vehicle when they're not licensed. Bad things happen. Okay. Here's a question/statement from Chase. Another reason for people to reconsider dark tint. I have 5% on my rear windshield. Therefore, my rear dash cam isn't that useful. Very interesting point. Yes, you capture less information. Your eye works on light. We need light to see. Cameras need the same. I was talking about that Audi that I wasn't impressed with this morning. Yeah, I have dash cam footage of them racing past me on the shoulder, and or almost on the shoulder, because they actually just stayed inside the lines, but they were booking it. And it's amazing how different quality cameras capture different things. I have a pretty good camera, and it still would have been better. Like, my rear camera sees less than my front camera. It's darker. Okay. What are the consequences of driving without your license if driving normally? So not without a license, that's not an unlicensed person. It's simply not carrying their card, their photo card. You are required by law in Ontario to surrender your card upon demand for reasonable inspection by a police officer. Now, if you don't or cannot fulfill that requirement when you're pulled over, you can be charged $110 for failing to surrender your license. Simple as that. That's it. People say, well, can I show you a photograph of it? You can show us your baby photos. You can show us anything. It does not fit or meet the requirement under law to surrender your driver's license. That's the only way to meet that requirement. Now, if you're licensed, we can verify that you're licensed. We can ask you some questions and possibly use your photo in conjunction with information we ask you to verify who you say you are. But at the end of the day, you're going to be likely getting a ticket for $110. Here's a question coming from Instagram, and I apologize for not having looked at this earlier. I don't know what time Jason asked the question, but here is the question. Are police vehicles, wait, let me take this off screen. Are police vehicles exempt from the Highway Traffic Act tint laws? I've seen a lot of unmarked police cars fully tinted in the front. Jason, a big question is, where are you? Because in Ontario, there's no exemption for tint for anybody. The rules are the rules are the rules, and you can't tint beyond a certain level. Mechanics even have to check with a tint meter before verifying or certifying a vehicle for safety. An undercover car, truly undercover, might have tint that violates, but police officers, while undercover, can actually break the law permissibly, is that even a word? With permission, while infiltrating criminal things. So if you were infiltrating a gang that was the tinted window gang and you were the only guy who didn't have tinted windows, you probably wouldn't be able to pass yourself off as being in the gang. Is there a tinted window gang? But that's, generally speaking, there's a lot of things we can do that violate the HTA. We're allowed to speed. We're allowed to, what else are we allowed to do? Lights and sirens to go through intersections, after stopping, but in contravention or against a red light. There's a bunch of things we can do. Tinted windows really isn't one of them. Okay. Zeus. Why aren't the police enforcing traffic laws to cyclists? Let me sip some water. Okay. We do. And whenever we do, we get a lot of people who complain that we are enforcing laws to cyclists. They're responsible. We focus on the biggest offenders. And I mean that literally. Cars are physically larger, and a car breaks the law, they do more damage than when a bicycle does. That doesn't mean we don't enforce cyclists or we don't ticket cyclists when they break the law. We're pretty neutral if you break the law. Certainly when I'm out there, and I haven't been out there for a while, but when I'm out there, or was out there, I ticketed cyclists if I saw them doing something. But if I was focused on speeding, I probably wasn't looking for whether or not they had a bell on their bicycle. It really depends on what we're talking about. Running a red light, I don't care who you are. You run a red light, you're getting a ticket. And stop sign too. But it depends. Is there a particular offense you're seeing that you'd like to see enforced? I'd be interested to know. Okay. Is it illegal to put your hand out the window when driving? That's an interesting question. There's no law that I'm aware of that would prevent you from doing that. Is it a safe practice? No. You picture, and I visualize this whenever I hang my arm out the window, because on occasion I will do that. And I don't do it because as soon as I do it, I take it back in thinking about all the collisions where vehicles mash together, and I imagine what my arm would look like after a contact with a vehicle that was traveling at high speed. It's just a bad visual, and I have a lot of real life examples to reflect on. So I'll do it out of habit, then I'll undo it very quickly. Sometimes you go out there and you're in the wind doing this because every kid does that, and I'm a big kid. But it's not a good idea. It's not illegal, but it's not a good idea. Okay, moving along. Okay, we got this. What happens? We got that. Okay, apparently the check is in the mail. Thank you, that nerd dad. $5 there. That's good. We'll get you next episode. We'll give you some more compliments. But all kidding aside, he's got a great channel. And if you're a dad, if you're a parent, if you're a person who enjoys humor, because he's a funny guy. He may not be trying to be funny, but he's funny. And as my daughter would say, funny looking. But yeah. Okay. Hey. Okay, we were talking about this yesterday. I think it was based on a comment from YouTube, and I suggested come back tomorrow, and we'll talk about it during the live. So, hi, just joined. Did I miss if you already discussed whether a motorized gas bicycle is legal, or is it better just to settle for an e-bike if the e-bike has a 1,000-watt dual motor but limited by 32 kilometers per hour? So let's talk about it, because this is fantastic, and I love this topic. And as much as I'll break your heart right now with all the information I'm going to give you, I am not against these vehicles. I just want them to be legal, which means you can't use most of them. Okay, let's start with motorized gas bicycle. It's a motorcycle. If you put a gas motor, a gas engine on a bicycle, you've created a home-built motorcycle. It is not legal for the road. People will tell you it is. They'll say if it's less than 49 cc or some jazz like that. No, all you've created is a moped, and guess what? Mopeds are covered under motorcycle now. You have to get a license, you have to get ownership, you have to, which means plates, you have to get insurance. And it used to be that a moped could be operated by someone with a G-class license. That is not the case anymore. You must have a motorcycle license. That changed, I think, in 2007 or 8. But we see them where people strap on a motor and ride. They say it's a power-assisted bicycle. It's a motorcycle. When you talk about e-bikes are also motor vehicles, similar to that of a gas bicycle conversion. However, legislation has been introduced that say if you follow the rules set forth in the Act, we will deem it not to be a motor vehicle. The rules say it cannot be capable of exceeding 32 kilometers per hour, regardless if you have a switch that keeps it under 32 kilometers an hour. If you are capable of turning that switch and making it go faster, that's capable. And that means it's illegal. If it has a 1,000-watt dual motor, it's illegal because you cannot have more than 500 watts as a motor. So if you have a 1,000-watt motor that is restricted to 500 watts on paper, but it's really 1,000 watts, it's illegal. And if you are driving that little piece of legislation that makes it not a motor vehicle disappears. And then you are eligible for charges for motor vehicle no insurance, which has a fine range for any of these vehicles of $5,000 to $25,000 on a first conviction. It comes with up to 6 months in jail should they decide to pursue it. And then you have the license issue and the insurance. We covered insurance, the license plate issue, the safety issue. We'll be checking for brakes. Can it stop in the appropriate distance? Because now it's an unsafe motor vehicle, and you're going to be charged. and chances are be charged for everything under the sun. So don't do that. If you want an e-bike, make sure it's a truly legal e-bike. I have one. They're great. I was injured in a collision a number of years ago. The e-bike allows me to augment. It's a pedelec. I don't have a throttle situation where I can just zip around, but when I pedal, it helps me do some of the work, and it helps me work through, especially when I get fatigue in my injured stuff. It just helps. It's not perfect, but it helps. So I'm not against e-bikes if they're lawful. I do have a problem with those that are fake e-bikes, because there's the ones that look like race bikes that do 90 kilometers an hour when you flip a switch. Those are absolutely illegal. And those who have been getting away with it, just you may want to know that we've been charging people a lot. Just saying. Simran has a question. Is there any height requirement for Ontario police officer? There is no height. That's not the right button. Hold on. There we go. Is there any height requirement for Ontario police officer? The answer is no. There's no minimum height that I'm aware of. You can, years and years ago, I think you had to be 6 foot or close to it to become a member of the Toronto Police or a police service. That is long since gone. It's not a requirement. But if you go to traffic or tps.ca/careers, all the requirements are there. So at least you can exhaust all your questions there. Great source. And if you have more questions that aren't answered there, I would suggest reaching out to a recruiter. Okay, a little water. Can I have a modified exhaust if it still has catalytic converter, resonator, and muffler? That's at least very good stuff, but it has to comply with the requirements. I believe it's 74 decibels. I'm not a mechanic, but I'm told 74 decibels is what's required. And here's the funny thing. We don't check. Why? Because we don't use meters. But if you're creating unnecessary noise, and you could do that with a stock exhaust system, if you're creating unnecessary noise by way of your stereo or your exhaust or what have you, you can still get a ticket for $110. If you're without a muffler, resonator, or catalytic converter, there's additional charges. But just for noise, you could be getting charged for unnecessary noise. But you're at least off to a good start if you are using modified and legal and meeting some, the requirements. You could have a non-stock, throatier, better breathing exhaust that may meet all the requirements. So the answer really is depends. Let's see. Chase has got some stuff going on here. From TikTok. So imagine the jackrabbit start scenario. What if you're making a left turn and the light just turns green, but the opposing traffic going straight waves you through? That's different. If someone is telling you to go through, if you've waited, you've communicated, you've been given direction, you are not hammering down on that gas and jumping in front of them. The idea is, well, that really is an unsafe thing, and people shouldn't direct traffic from, waving their arms, because they'd be very responsible for. We would never do it. We wouldn't want to give that direction as a police officer, because we'd be responsible. But if the scenario is that they can't move, their car stalls, they're getting all frustrated, you go ahead. That would be a reason. That's not a jackrabbit start. You're having communication. Hopefully you have a dash cam to record that in the event that you're pulled over. But chances are that's not a police-involved situation. I would never stop someone in that scenario. Are e-bikes allowed to be on sidewalks? The answer in Toronto is absolutely not. Every jurisdiction is going to have its own rules, because it's a bylaw that designates whether or not, or determines whether or not a bicycle can be on the sidewalk. In Toronto, e-bikes cannot be on the sidewalk at all, ever, even though we see them on a regular basis. Not cool. If you're talking about regular bicycles, you must be under the age of 14, aka 13, to be on a sidewalk. Children can use it. Once you're 14, you are, for the purposes of sidewalks, not childish enough. Apparently I missed a question from Dr. Nick. Let me scroll back and see if I can find it, because you want to know about, here we are. What are your thoughts on how lucrative ticket fighting companies are? Have you dealt with them? A local one guarantees your ticket dropped or double your money back, and I don't even have to attend. I've never heard of advertising like that. I don't use any of these companies. I don't have a problem with you having a defense. I have a problem when it's a game. If it's a game to get you a break, just if you did the deed, if you broke the law, own up to it. I think you should have to pay your ticket in advance. I think clogging up the courts is absolutely irresponsible. And I think that when people never mind using companies, Well, forget about companies. I think when people fight a ticket when they know they're guilty, I think it's irresponsible. I don't think it should be permitted. Technicalities shouldn't be an option. You should be held accountable, period. And that's the reason why stunt driving ultimately has a 14-day impound and a 30-day suspension at the roadside, because people will go to court and play all sorts of games and not be held responsible after court. So the province said, we're not playing this game anymore. We're going to take your stuff now, and we're going to give you consequences now, immediately. And if court gets you, then they'll give you the appropriate follow-up. But if games are played, then you're still going to get something. That's pretty much the logic behind why they did that. In my very non-quoting them, they said something along those lines in an article. So I'm not making it up. Just Tech. This is sort of what we just talked about. Our 49cc bicycles with lights allowed on the road. The bike also has functioning pedals. No. 49cc bicycles or motorcycles or mopeds, depending on what you want to classify them as, they're totally illegal. They're only legal on private property. Okay. Do you guys do random license plate checks on the road? Absolutely. Not only do we do random license plate checks on the road, I used to check everything I was behind, but we have the introduction of automatic license plate readers in the province of Ontario, which do it automatically, and they just alert you when they find something that you need to respond to. You see a violation, expired plate, you see a suspended driver, you see someone with a warrant, they'll just beep, 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 and you look down, hey, there's someone to pull over, and they pull people over. But we check everybody. We can check, and we don't even have to check you before we pull you over. We can pull you over and just do a license check, an insurance check, a sobriety check, check your vehicle for safety, and you don't have to do anything wrong in terms of driving violations. We can still get pulled over. What is this? Interesting question. Can I drive on a highway 20 kilometers? No. Can I drive on a highway 20 kilometers over the speed limit without a penalty? No, it's speeding. And if the spot at 20 kilometers an hour could be 20% over, it could be a lot higher. 16 over, 15 over is 25 over the speed limit in very many places. If you're doing 20 over and a 30, speeding is unacceptable. You cannot legally speed ever. And I'd love to see photo radar everywhere on every road. I think if you speed, you should be held accountable. You should lose your license. Is it illegal to ride in the trunk of a car? It's actually stunt driving. The driver can be charged for stunt driving if you carry a passenger in the trunk. Now, a trunk and a rear cargo area is different, like a rear-facing factory-designed seat designed in the trunk to hold people. Like back in the day, you had, what are they called? Station wagons. And the station wagon had rear-facing, that's not the trunk. A trunk has a closed lid, no windows, no seats. Cargo area, if there's no seats, is illegal. You can't do that either. But you have to be in a proper seat designed by the manufacturer with a seat belt. You can't, that's the only time. We talked about that. Boom, boom, boom. This is the one I was trying to get to. Morning. Still morning. If you're at a stop sign in traffic, the opposite direction, stop for pedestrians, can I go? Yeah. If it's out of the stop sequence and they cannot go, well, if you're turning, because if they're stopped for a pedestrian, they're also in front of you, means you can't go either because they're in the intersection. But if you're turning right or left and the person who would normally be next to go is currently tied up because of, we don't stop all traffic, but they would be the next to go once it's clear. It's first to arrive, first to drive. But if they've got pedestrians in their path, they are not going anywhere. Okay, can cops speed through construction zones? Police can speed anywhere. Police are permitted to legally exceed the posted speed limit during the lawful execution of their duties. Is there risk involved with that? Yes. Is there a need to do it? Yes. Is it because we need to buy a pizza because our break starts in 5 minutes? No. What is the visual acuity standard in order to be a parking enforcement officer? I don't know if there is one. For police officer, you need to have 20/40 uncorrected with, what is it? Boom, boom, boom. It is for, I can't remember the line, but if you go to gps.ca/careers, you can get all of that information. But I don't know what their requirement is for vision, if there is any at all. Hey, something I didn't talk about, and I will talk about right now because it needs to be discussed, and that is, did you get your ticket for the Harley Davidson yet? We are supporting Special Olympics Ontario, and as a supporter of Special Olympics, I want you to know that you can go to harleyraffle.ca or trafficcop.ca, where I have a link to harleyraffle.ca, where you can go and buy your tickets and possibly win a 2022 Harley Davidson Touring Street Glide. 1 ticket for 20, 3 tickets for 50, 8 tickets for 100, and all the while, you are being a good human being, even if you come away with a brand new Harley Davidson. Which, if you really don't want it, you just want to be a good Samaritan, you could just donate it back and they'll raffle it off again. But July 5th, 2023 is when the early bird prizes. So you want to get in and get the extra chance of winning a $500 Harley Davidson gift card. But the actual draw is August the 2nd. So you want to buy these tickets before August 2nd, or you don't get an opportunity to win. It's so simple. If you if you don't know about Special Olympics, read up on them. They are amazing, and they support amazing athletes. Truly, so many good things. We just had yesterday was the torch run supporting Special Olympics, and now we have the Harley raffle, and then just so much goodness. Okay, are cops allowed to be on their cell phones while driving? Yes, legally we're exempt from the handheld communication rules, and they can use their handheld communication rules and their computers and their radios. They're exempt. Police, fire, ambulance, exempt. There's a bunch of other people who are also exempt, but you asked about cops, and the answer is yes. We talked about that. We talked about trunks of cars. We talked about this. What else do we talk about? Can my cousin, let's talk about your cousin. Can my cousin drive my car legally in Ontario as a visitor with an international driver's license? I want to make perfectly clear that international driver's license is not a driver's license. A foreign license, a license from another country, is something that would be honored here. However, there may be some exclusions, and they should check with the ministry or go to trafficcop.ca, where I have a link to an information page about so many things, but one in particular about newcomers and visitors driving in Canada. It explains the rules in each province. You want to make sure also that your insurance company will accept that they are considered a licensed driver. Some countries require that you have an international driver's license in addition, or international driving permit, in addition to the foreign license, because some countries require a translation card. It all depends. So check it out, know before you go. Generally speaking, visitors can drive if they are licensed in a foreign country. Again, not all countries are honored. What do we have this? Is there ever a reason to yield left to an emergency vehicle? Do you mean that pull over to a left side of the road? The rules say, under the HDA, it says you must pull over to the nearest edge of road, curb or edge of road. If you were in a divided highway situation, you're on a multi-lane expressway, you might be in lane 1, and the closest thing may be the shoulder on the left. Chances are we're going to want you to go to the right. If we're right behind you and there's nowhere to go, you cannot move. The only option is to go to the shoulder to make path. We're probably going to be waving our arms out the window like crazy. So pay attention to what we're giving you as direction. But more often than not, we want you to be moving to the right, even if the left is an option. Okay, someone on TikTok asked the OPP, what is this? Someone OPP asked the OPP why he has a bike rack that blocks his plate. He said if he relocated it, then it would no longer be physically on the rear of the vehicle, so it's a ticket either way. They should be relocating their plates, as should we. And I understand that it's a very low, it is technically a violation, and I suppose we could be ticketed for it. To be perfectly compliant as to the rules, we should be relocating our plate. Our vehicles have giant stickers on them that say exactly who we are and what we are. And based on the fact that we're the ones looking to identify other vehicles, it's, I guess, a low bar, but it's not an acceptable excuse. It should be relocated. There are kits available that will take a plate and they can hang it properly. I don't have a really good excuse for you. I've talked about this all over the place. I don't agree with it. And Chase very accurately quotes the HTA saying it has to be in a conspicuous place in the rear. Yeah, again, there's very low-cost kits that relocate it, and there's ways of doing it, and it doesn't get done. We've talked about it. Michael says he's still alive. Is that stuff recorded? He says, I am still alive, traffic chaps. I choose to watch other stuff and things until now. I am here for dad jokes and catch replay later. Very good. Well, I have dad jokes coming up in just a moment because we were approaching the end of the hour and a half. Long show today. Let's see here. Question says, does no right turn on red apply to bikes turning into a bike lane? A no right turn on red applies to everyone at that intersection. A red light is a red light. You, as a bicycle rider, must comply with the red light as well. If you want to get off the bicycle and walk with a lawful crossing on the other intersection, you can do that, but you cannot ride through the light. Can a police officer give a ticket outside of their jurisdiction? So depends on how far outside of the jurisdiction. Rules are that I must be on a neighboring jurisdiction, no more than one jurisdiction out. So if I'm in a neighboring, like Peel, if I'm in Peel, I can write a ticket. If I'm in York Regional Police, York Region, I can write a ticket. If I'm beyond that, I'm going to ask either York Region to write it or a local officer. I can still stop you legally, but issuing the ticket should be in a jurisdiction that is giving you a reasonable opportunity to get to a courthouse. And but I would give evidence to the officer writing the ticket so they could act on that information and lay the charge. I wouldn't be doing enforcement there anyway. Now, when we talk about criminal code, I can arrest someone anywhere in Canada. Sorry, anywhere in Ontario as a police officer. I can arrest someone anywhere in Canada as a citizen's arrest, because outside the province of Ontario, I'm not a police officer, unless I'm sworn in temporarily, which we do on occasion. The RCMP will swear us in as a constable. I don't know if it's federal. I guess it would be federal at that point, so that we can assist with things. Like, when you do the Olympics kind of thing, officers from around Canada will go. They'll all be sworn in temporarily with the RCMP, so they can have arrest privileges everywhere or authorities everywhere. How do you hold officers accountable? Oh my goodness, we are held accountable constantly. We are of the most scrutinized profession on the planet. I'm pretty convinced, more so than doctors and lawyers and everybody combined. So how are we held accountable? Well, one, we're supervised. Two, we're recorded, and everything we do is reviewed. So to some degree, so there's that. So if something doesn't get caught there, then there's also peers. If we see someone doing the wrong thing, we're going to speak up, and if we witness someone doing something criminal, we're going to take action. If you're talking about someone being victimized or taken advantage of, or somehow a law is being broken or something is inappropriate being done, you as the victim or the witness of something who is not a member of the police service can complain. OIPRD is one option. You can make a report. You can talk to a supervisor. Tons and tons of different options. And all of that gets reviewed. See, we are responsible both for, to adhere to the law, but we also have the Police Services Act in addition to all that. So where someone does something wrong, you can face the charges. We can get charged twice. Do you believe that racing laws should be stiffer for convictions? I say yes. Well, right now, stunt driving, which is where racing laws fall under, is 30 days suspension on roadside, 14-day vehicle impound at roadside. Upon conviction the first time, you're looking at a 1 to 3 year further suspension, a $2,000 to $10,000 fine, up to 6 months in jail. On a second conviction, you're looking at a $2,000 to $10,000 fine. You're looking at 3 to 10 year suspension and up to 6 months in jail. If you are suspended or charged again with stunt driving or racing, after that, you're looking at a lifetime ban, a $2,000 to $10,000 fine, and up to 6 months in jail. If you actually convict people for this, I think that's probably okay. Although I would like to see cars being confiscated and crushed. That's a me thing, not a government or police thing. I'm just saying I'd like to see stiffer penalties, because you're putting lives at risk when you do these stupid things, and people choose to engage and continue to engage in this behavior despite getting caught. So how do you motivate people to stop doing things? Well, you take their precious car that they love so much and modified, and you turn it into a recycled heap of metal. Or some of them are made out of other materials. Just saying. Okay. Oh, a whole bunch of stuff just loaded. And I was so totally prepared to go offline, but let's see here. Can you Caleb would like to be deputized to write tickets. He can fill a book a day in Brampton with an hour's time, and he would help me work towards a toaster. You know what? Yeah, I wish I could. When I was a volunteer, when I was an auxiliary member, I said, if you just give me, you wave your wand, I'll write tickets all day. I would have totally done it. In Florida, they have volunteer parking enforcement officers in some jurisdictions. I thought that was pretty cool, but we don't have that here. You got to be a police officer. Are three-wheeled bikes allowed in the bike lane? Oh, sorry, three-wheeled e-bike allowed in the bike lane because technically they're not bicycles anymore. It depends on the jurisdiction. Toronto's going to be different than any other, and I don't know about tricycles. Do you know if e-tricycles are allowed in bike lanes? Toronto bike. I want to check here. Let's see here. I think that if it meets the requirements of a bicycle under the rules for the city of Toronto, that would probably be legal. You're not allowed to have scooters. If it looks like a scooter or a motorcycle, it's not allowed on the bike lane. If it's a pedelec, it's allowed in bike lanes and cycle tracks. But I don't know about though. I think cargo ones are not permitted. And I'm going to assume, I don't know. I want to find this. Toronto bicycle. I'm looking for City of Toronto. Come on, cycling in Toronto. Let me see if I can find it here. Where it's cycling in the law? Okay. Dooring, bicycle licensing, e-bikes and scooters. Let's have a look at that. Come on. Parking, where can you ride? Okay, bicycle, pedelec. So e-bike requiring pedaling over 40 kilograms. It's nowhere does it say. So I will try and find out, but I am not sure. If it's truly a pedelec, it might be okay. Truly, I think you get the prize for unique question for which I don't have an answer for today. What are the common uses for the mounted unit in Toronto aside from training? I think their primary function is for public order. But I don't know what they do because I work at traffic, and I'm sure they do lots of things. They can stop cars and do things as well. But I don't know what their primary, other than public order, which they are very, very good at. Okay, Kayla says, stay safe and remember, don't have a good day, have a great day. My wife says, have a safe day, everyone. It's a lovely day today, but it's hot, so please drink lots of water. That's from Leo wife, my wife. The three bike lane here. Okay. I see the follow-up for public comment. So this was I guess YouTube had more room. Yeah, I guess if they comply to everything, I just don't know. I don't know for Satan. So I need to look up more. All right. Do all y'all have, or do y'all have ALPRs in all your vehicles? They are coming, but they are not on all of our vehicles yet. They have not been deployed, as far as I know. We have them in testing, but we don't have them in all our cars. The Grinch says cars shouldn't be crushed. They should be put back onto the road. They should be put back to roadworthy and give them away to peeps that could use a car. That's a very nice way of doing it. Toby wants to know if there's any upcoming community initiatives coming up. Example, police talking to public at a mall. I'm sure there are. That's not something that we're involved in as the traffic unit. This is us talking to the mall. This is our community outreach and engagement. We do it every day. In terms of in-person, we will be at the Honda Indy. More information coming as we start to push social media on it. But we're looking forward to seeing everyone there. In terms of the malls, I would call your local police division to find out if they have any events coming up. But they're always doing stuff. That is a regular thing. All right. Can a G2 driver drive after midnight? Yes, a G2 driver can drive after midnight. However, they cannot have in the first year. They're limited to how many passengers they have under the age of 20 that aren't immediate family. So in the first 6 months, you can have no more than 120 between 12 and 5 a.m. And after in the second 6-month period after they're licensed as a G2, they can have no more than 3 persons under the age of 20, unless, again, exempt as to the immediate family. They can have you can load your car up with people. You can, if you have children, then you have a G2. You can drive those children at night. All right. We covered that. We covered that. We covered this. All right. Hydrate. Have a great day. Yes, hydrate is a good idea. Can you tell how fast someone is going when they're behind you? If we have moving radar installed in the motor vehicle, they have antennas pointing rear or forward, and we can activate either one to determine the speed of vehicles approaching or going away in either direction. So yes, we can. And last but not least, public comment. Thank you for answering my question about gas bicycle, e-bikes, and 3-wheeled e-bikes. You're very helpful. Thank you very much. Well, that's what we're here for. So thank you for being here to ask those questions, because without you, we wouldn't have what to talk about. Now, I have a joke. Actually, I have 2 jokes. We'll start with the one from the deck my wife bought me, which has had some good jokes, but not as many as I would have liked. She said, why do you keep making fun of the deck that I gave you the joke to? Okay, my son is officially old enough that he doesn't ask for piggyback rides anymore. To be honest, it's a big weight off my shoulders. Okay. Astronomers got tired of watching the moon orbit the Earth for 24 hours. So they decided to call it a day. And last but not least, or maybe it's least, my wife told me to stop impersonating a flamingo. I had to put my foot down. It's not bad. Thank you again for everyone who spent time. If you don't already follow us, please do. If for some reason you don't know who I am, my name is Sean Shapiro. I'm a police officer with the Toronto Police Service, and we do this every single day, answering your traffic and police questions so we can help find you the answers you are looking for. You know, this is a great question. So even though I'm saying goodbye, I'm going to answer it because Jason asked, and I, again, neglected Instagram. Question was, are skateboards, longboards, or scooters legal to be in the bike lane? The answer is no. They are not they are not bicycles, and they are not permitted in the bike lane. So that is the answer, and it was a quick one. And, Zombie does not have a dad joke today, which is disappointing because Zombie has provided us with a multitude of phenomenal dad jokes that are generally better than the ones that I provide. So no fun. The Grinch wants to know if I can name the movie where police officers use the term "be well." I'm going to take a guess, although I can't remember, and I'm going to assume it's Demolition Man. I'm going to assume it's Demolition Man. Am I correct? Can you verify? I think it is. And I really love that movie. So I'm hoping I'm right because I haven't watched it in about a decade or more. I will wait for that answer while we play the song, which is the traffic song. It's how we end our show. Back tomorrow, 10 a.m. I hope you are well. Be well.
Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Driving safely helps the traffic flow. Watch for pedestrians, look out for bikes, and don't drive like a jerk that no one likes. Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Driving safely is the way to go. Put down your cell phone, nobody needs you to text and drive on the DVP. Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Stop at stop signs, look both ways, then go. Seatbelt, save your life indeed. And watch your driving, don't speed. Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Driving safely is the way to go. Don't drink and drive or smoke some weed because you might go to jail and not get free. Yellow light, red light, green light, go. Driving safely helps the traffic flow.
I can't tell you how happy I am that I was correct and that it is Demolition Man. If you have not seen the Wesley Snipes Stallone movie about people who were frozen for offenses and then thawed out, and the world has changed, and Taco Bell is the only place to eat. Great movie. Yeah, go see it. Go see it now. Have a great day, everybody. Be safe, and see you tomorrow.